Immortality. It's a concept that many wish to be true, and while we haven't figured out how to do it in the real world, the evil characters from comic books seem to figure it out left, right, and center. The Collector of Worlds, kinda like those weirdos who collect snow globes. Brainiac is considered one of Superman's stronger and actually not boring foes. Brainiac's level of intellect supersedes humans by several centuries of advanced knowledge. He's so smart that his intelligence actually creates his other powers, if that even makes sense. For example, he can interconnect his consciousness with other computer systems, possess other beings, and even transfer knowledge and information to himself from others. The original Brainiac's purpose was to capture cities and assimilate knowledge in order to gain power. Part of his operating procedure is collecting civilizations for study and preserving his knowledge of alien species so that he remains the most supreme being in the universe, and then destroying planets and galaxies in his wake to prevent the knowledge from spreading. Thanks to Brainiac's mechanical body, he is immune to aging, with his exact age never being specified, but he was alive long before Krypton's destruction, making him several thousand years old at the least. And he has the ability to recover himself as long as a single line of his DNA remains. Number 9, Granny Goodness. Granny Goodness is probably the complete opposite of anything we would describe as goodness. She was originally one of the lowlies, basically the peasant class on Apokolips. From a younger age, she was taken by Darkseid and raised and trained to become head of the Shock Troops and of the Female Furies. She has the responsibility to bring young warriors from other worlds to fight each other to earn the right to be trained by her. But Granny Goodness also has multiple orphanages where she both trains and disciplines younger individuals looking for potential warriors for Darkseid. Being a resident of Apokolips, Granny here does have quite a bit of power. She has superhuman strength, speed, durability, and senses, as well as invulnerability, an advanced immune system, and yes, that's right, immortality. But being immortal doesn't necessarily save you from looking old as hell, which is why we get Granny Goodness. Number 8, Vandal Savage. When you think of intelligence, you don't often think of cavemen, but there is one caveman who can proudly make this list. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man ever, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. Because he's a villain, that's what happens. Number 7, Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul was born around 700 years ago, and thanks to the Lazarus Pits, he has been able to keep his body in working order. So he isn't actually immortal, but he has gained a sort of pseudo-immortality from the Lazarus Pits. After he came into contact with the Pits, he eventually became a master martial artist and a master fencer. He gained a massive amount of wealth and started creating organizations to rid the world of crime, first being called the Demon, which the later League of Assassins is a branch of. Ra's is an eco-terrorist, and his purpose with the League of Assassins is to eliminate all evil in the world by destroying all of humanity and just starting all over again. Obviously, that mentality means he routinely has run-ins with the superhero community, especially Batman, whom he helped train. Ra's has had many plans over the years that tried to destroy the world, and he has also beaten the entire JLA when he discovered Batman's notes on them. With his years of experience and his vast amount of accumulated resources, this older fellow is a massive threat to both the heroes and the entire world. Number 6, Doomsday. Doomsday is essentially just pure destruction. He was able to bring down the Justice League and take the life of Earth's premier hero, Superman, in his first ever appearance. Doomsday doesn't speak, he can't be reasoned with, and the only way to stop him is to beat him harder than he will beat you. That's because Doomsday was created on the planet Krypton as the ultimate life form, tested against that planet's harsh environment and eventually against the Kryptonians themselves. Doomsday's whole life cycle involves it losing its life and then coming back stronger than whatever took it out out in the first place. Over decades, that involved literal thousands of deaths, and Doomsday essentially became a nearly undefeatable monster with no other thought process beyond destroying everything in front of him and moving on. All he does is punch things to pieces, and the only way to stop him is to try and punch him to pieces however you can and as quickly as you can before he does too much damage. And no matter what you do, he will come back even stronger. He's even fought his way out of hell itself. Number 5, Darkseid. In the New 52, Uxas, who would become Darkseid, whispers doubt into the ears of the gods, sending them into war with each other, which is when he takes them all out and steals their power, making himself the first of the new gods. He has immeasurable strength. He's immortal, obviously, nearly invulnerable for surviving an explosion that could destroy existence itself. He wields the cosmic Omega effect using Omega beams to seriously hurt people like Superman and even the Spectre. He can remove people from existence, and using the Omega sanction can trap people in an endless loop of increasingly horrible lives. Telepathically strong enough to control the population of a planet, he can use telekinesis, teleport, control the time stream, and manipulate matter. He's super smart, has advanced technology, and rules Apocalypse and his army of parademons, but almost everything he does is through avatars that he creates because he is the embodiment of evil. He can do anything he wants to and can never truly be defeated except for in his true form, which is nearly undefeatable. Number 4, Mr. Mind. I think anyone who hasn't heard of this villain before would be kind of forgiven. When you think of the most fearsome villains, specifically the villains of Captain Marvel, otherwise known as Shazam, you may not first think about the 7-inch long sentient worm from Venus known as Mr. Mind. This diabolically evil, mind-controlling worm, after the events of Infinite Crisis, would cocoon himself and then emerge as a massive monstrosity capable of manipulating reality, consuming universes, and traveling through time and space. He was described as, quote, eating years and events from the universe's history, altering the Earth with every flap of his massive wings. It took a combined effort from Booster Gold, Supernova, and Skeets to defeat Mr. Mind by trapping him inside Skeets' shell, which was fortified by the Suspendium. Then Booster Gold threw Skeets through time with the help of Supernova to the day that Mr. Miracle was first discovered on Earth by Dr. Sivana, and then he is trapped in a time loop forever. So they didn't actually end him, they just trapped him in a time loop. This all-powerful, mind-controlling, 7-inch long worm. Number 3, the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor's story actually begins billions of years ago with the creation of the multiverse. When a scientist named Krona, a guardian of the universe on the Green Lantern world of Oa, tries to use a device that would allow him to witness creation itself, a massive explosion occurs which actually alters the creation of the universe, giving birth to the multiverse. Among the countless alternate realities created in this incident was the antimatter universe, the birthplace of the Anti-Monitor. The Anti-Monitor embodies evil and seeks to conquer all of existence, while his brother, the Monitor, embodies goodness and watches over life. But that was changed in the New 52 and then again in DC Rebirth. And I gotta tell you what this character can actually do. The Anti-Monitor is a being of extraordinary power who feeds on the energies of destroyed universes. These energies further increase his power, allowing him to manipulate reality and even travel through time. He can also unleash his energy as bolts or shockwaves to attack his opponents. In addition, the Anti-Monitor possesses incredible strength, stamina, and durability, and can even grow to be hundreds of meters tall. He also has an army of shadow demons from the antimatter universe at his command. However, the extent of the Anti-Monitor's power is dependent on his energy levels, which can be drained in order to weaken him. Still, only another cosmic being like the Monitor or the Spectre is capable of opposing the Anti-Monitor at full power, and even they needed help from some of DC's top heroes to put him down for good. Number 2, Mr. Zed. Now, I'd be lying if I said the concept for Mr. Zed wasn't at least somewhat cool. His whole shtick is being immortal and traveling through time to trap famous people throughout history in the crystal that sits on top of his walking cane. Superman, being one of the most popular and important heroes, obviously meant there was going to be at least an attempt to get him inside that crystal. Unfortunately for Mr. Z, Superman's Kryptonian heritage just means that he's invulnerable to the crystal. Not only invulnerable to it, but he even overloads the crystal, destroying it and releasing all those trapped inside. Kinda makes you wonder why DC started struggling to make Superman stories actually interesting. As for Mr. Z, he would face Superman once back in 1943 and again when the pair got stranded on an island and Superman got rescued, but Mr. Z was literally left out there to starve forever. Number 1. Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mr. Mxyzptlk is a reality warping imp obsessed with Superman who, just like his rival Batmite did with Batman, simply seeks to annoy the heck out of Superman and just prove he is smarter than him. Which is good, because he has a level of power that in other hands could cause the end of the entire multiverse. He can do almost anything imaginable if he wishes, and his only weakness really is being convinced or tricked into saying his own name backwards to send him back to the 5th dimension, which if you're trying to say it correctly is honestly a superpower in and of itself. Mxyzptlk is able to use magic to survive most attacks, he can regenerate and heal himself instantly, and has high tolerance to pain, making him basically impossible to defeat. Coming in at number 10 today is Ultron. How can you really pass away if you were never technically alive to begin with? Over time, Ultron has definitely taken on more squishy bodies, like when he became half Hank Pym, but for the most part, Ultron as a villain has been pretty much entirely unkillable, if you could even describe him that way. A large part of this has to do with his program transmitter. Located in his head cavity, the program transmitter can project Ultron's entire 3.2 terabyte memory and personality system into some computer systems. He can beam part or all of his programming into remote locations, such as computers or alternate robotic bodies, and has used this ability to create and control entire armies of himself, to move himself into other bodies if he's destroyed, and he's even used it to implant directives into his own creations to rebuild Ultron if he is ever actually destroyed. But that alone is a pretty hard thing enough to do, because normally Ultron's outer shell is made entirely of adamantium, one of the strongest metals in the entire Marvel universe. On top of that though, Ultron is almost always improving himself, upgrading his body, programming, and abilities, while also spreading his influence further and deeper into the cosmos. Number 9. The One Below All. The One Below All is a relatively recent addition to the comics, but the idea of the entity isn't, as we have known about the One Above All for a while, and his mere existence begs the question of who inhabits the opposite side of the spectrum. Thanks to the Immortal Hulk storyline, we now know it is utterly terrifying. He resides in the below place, and his power has been manifesting itself for decades in the form of gamma mutates like the Hulk. In the story, we do get brief glimpses of what could actually happen if the embodiment of destruction and nothingness were to be set loose on the multiverse. Basically, the One Below All completely takes over the body of the Immortal Hulk, and using this body, he brings an end to the current version of the multiverse, destroying literally everything and everyone over billions of years, including the very essence of life and the multiverse itself. So that when the multiverse is rebirthed into its new version, it is the last time it can truly even happen. With the Hulk / One Below All / Breaker of Worlds consuming everything to grow to a massive planetary scale, wiping out all of existence. But thanks to some time/reality traveling bugs, this does not come to pass, but it could, and that's all you need to know. Number 8. Apocalypse. If it wasn't for his goal of mutant domination and evolution, Apocalypse would vaporize the X-Men whenever he wanted to, and even if that wasn't how he did it, he has the capacity to wipe out the X-Men in a whole handful of ways. For starters, Apocalypse is what is called an external. These are beings, mostly mutants, who are immortal, share a psychic connection, and who can revive themselves. So he can just never be permanently taken down, and he has been around for about 5,000 years. Apocalypse's original mutant ability was to be able to control his own molecular structure, but over time, with the mentality of survival of the fittest, he has enhanced his abilities and even gained new ones through the use of celestial technology, celestial armor, and at least 2 techno-organic viruses. He can do a lot with his molecular manipulation, including heal himself and turn his limbs into simple melee weapons, but also technologically complex weapons like plasma cannons. But I think the most impressive thing he can do is consciously and subconsciously grant himself a huge amount of mutant powers at will. That makes him too much for most heroes to handle already, and we haven't even talked about his celestial energy manipulation, his psionic abilities, or any of his countless horsemen of the apocalypse, all of whom were given power boosts by this unstoppable mutant. Number 7. Maestro. The Incredible Hulk has certainly been through the ringer in his decorated career, but few versions of the character are the living embodiment of that fact like the Maestro. An alternate version of Bruce Banner from an apocalyptic future, the Maestro is far more intense and complex than his Earth 616 counterpart. The best way to describe Maestro is to say that he is basically a smarter, older, villainous version of Dr. Bruce Banner with all the powers and abilities of the original, but with a touch more nuclear radiation. Now, I don't know if you know, but the Hulk is actually immortal. As a gamma mutate with a connection to the below place, Bruce Banner and Hulk learned he possessed the ability to commandeer his own recovery rate. One time, Hulk had been pulled apart and put into several different jars, only to literally compel his own body to come back together by sheer force of will. The Hulk, and by extension Maestro, is capable of regenerating damaged or destroyed areas of his entire body with much greater speed and efficiency than any of us can do. The Hulk was also able to systematically regenerate his internal organs and tissues, and was also able to literally rip off a large fraction of his own head, allowing it to completely regrow. The Maestro himself was able to molecularly rebuild his own body after being atomized. The Hulk has survived to be the only living human being left on the entire Earth in Hulk the End, so immortality for this guy is a big old checkmark. Number 6. Agatha Harkness. Like a few of these villains, when we first met Agatha Harkness in Fantastic Four number 95 from October 1969, she was already elderly. She started out as the nanny for the newly born Franklin Richards, and using her magical powers, she even saved the Fantastic Four from the Frightful Four, a handful of other villains, and also helped Franklin when his powers first started to emerge. But she went on to have an interesting relationship with the Scarlet Witch, Wanda Maximoff, but also her mother Natalia Maximoff. That's because this sweet nanny Agatha is actually an incredibly ancient sorcerer who was around to remember the sinking of Atlantis nearly 18,500 years ago, and she was probably the most powerful of the original witches during the Salem witch trials, an event that she actually supported as she thought it would cull the weak magic users who held them all collectively back. While Agatha is not technically immortal, her use of magic coupled with her extended lifespan has made her basically the same thing. Number 5. Kang the Conqueror. Kang is a little bit of an interesting pick for this list, as he totally can be stopped and has been multiple times. Thanks to the advanced time period he comes from, Nathaniel Richards has an increased lifespan, making him look like 40 years old when he's actually 70 years old. That's fine, that doesn't make him unstoppable or immortal. What makes him immortal is a couple of things. For starters, as most people know, Kang has a huge relationship with time. A version of this guy exists at almost all moments of the time stream, and not just one version of him, as there have been Kangs from different universes that have shown up as well. So not only can Nathaniel Richards show up at any point in the time stream in any of his numerous identities that all have their own long history, but his alternate universe versions are almost always set to make an appearance in his place. And then, on top of that, until recently, Nathaniel had the ability to transfer his consciousness to another body whenever he did actually pass away. So, yeah, he's kind of immortal. Number 4. That Which Endures. That Which Endures is basically like a bacteria. All the way back at the very beginning of life, billions of years ago, when the first cells split on Earth and multicellular life forms began to exist, That Which Endures attached itself to the resulting organism and has been multiplying and sticking with whatever species it determined was the most dominant in order to ensure its own survival. It basically chooses which species are successful, and a small part of it exists in every member of that species. At first, that was dinosaurs, and then eventually humans. Around every 100,000 years, That Which Endures will just pop up in a large number of that species, look around, and see if any other species is beginning to come out on top, which is when it would jump ship to that new species. When it did this in Avengers West Coast number 47 in 1989, it noticed that there was a super cool and powerful evolution in Homo sapiens known as Homo superior, aka the mutants. That Which Endures chose the Scarlet Witch as the first mutant it would try to jump to, using her to destroy Homo sapiens. Luckily though, the Great Lakes Initiative alongside Vision were able to stop this from happening, and we haven't really heard anything of this semi-sentient organism ever since. Number 3. The Beast. The ninja clan known as the Hand has had many run-ins with different heroes over the years, but none of those heroes have had as much interaction with the shadowy group as Daredevil. His mentor, Stick, and his sometimes girlfriend, Elektra, have history with the clan as well, and he's never been particularly fond of them. But when he seemed to secure control over the clan, he decided to put their skills to good use. He moved them to Hell's Kitchen and started up a headquarters and prison known as Shadowland. He changed the Hand into what he thought was a force for good, but as his time with the Hand went on, he seemed to be the one who was changing, becoming more aggressive and drastic with his methods of crime fighting. He started to butt heads with other heroes and even became responsible for the passing of his adversary, Bullseye, again. Now it turns out that this brutal new Daredevil was actually being possessed by an ancient demon called the Beast, who is the source of the Hand's mystical powers and has been the reason the clan was as morally dubious as it is. Daredevil was secretly manipulated by the Snake Root, a small faction of the Hand that worshipped the Beast. They manipulated Daredevil into undergoing the ritual of the Black Flower. So when Daredevil removed the problem of Bullseye from existence, it completed the ritual and the Beast possessed him and corrupted the people of Hell's Kitchen until Iron Fist exorcised the demon from that. Number 2, Uranos. As you might be able to gather from their name, Eternals are, well, eternal, meaning they are immortal, and some of them are scary powerful. The Eternal known as Uranos first ever appeared in Marvel What If number 24 in September of 1980, in a story that explained the origins of the Eternals. In this story, Uranos is trying to convince his brother, Kronos, that the Eternals should use their massive amounts of power to just take over the world. He believed the Eternals would best fulfill their duties if they exterminated both the deviants and the humans on Earth, all life outside the universe as well, and imprison the Celestials, but his brothers, Kronos and Oceanus, luckily disagreed, sparking the Eternals' civil war. The war culminated in his defeat and banishment to the planet Uranus. Surprise though, this isn't what actually happened. The Uranos who was banished to another planet was actually a clone of the real Uranos who was banished to the Exclusion, as he tied his own passing to the destruction of Earth, meaning if he goes, we all go. Which is why he was sent to the Exclusion, only able to leave an hour at a time at the discretion of the Prime Eternal. Most recently, Uranos was used by Druig to wipe out a massive amount of the mutant population when a war between the Eternals and the mutants broke out. And finally, in at number 1 today is Shadow King. Amal Farouk was a pretty nasty mutant that Charles Xavier had a run-in with in Cairo way back in the day before he started the X-Men. Amal attacked Xavier and then tried to convince Charles to partner with him in his nefarious ways. Luckily, Charles refused, challenged Farouk to a psychic duel, and won, which seemed to take Farouk's life, and he moved on to create the X-Men in order to combat evil mutants in the world like Farouk himself. What no one knew until about 150 issues later is that Farouk was actually merged with a multiversal manifestation of the dark side of human consciousness who had been possessing various individuals since the dawn of human history, called the Shadow King. Years and years later, the Shadow King and Farouk, who had been floating around in the astral plane, made a move to attack Xavier again, taking over the new mutant Karma due to her own mutant ability of possession, making her vulnerable. He was eventually defeated, but this multiversal entity would go on to possess a whole number of powerful people, mainly telepaths like Marvel Girl and Psylocke, whose energy the Shadow King would feed off of. But there have been many others who have been possessed, corrupted, and misled by this powerful telepathic entity in not only the 616 universe, but all over the multiverse.
Coming in at number 10, we have the She-Hulk villain Abominatrix, who surprisingly enough doesn't actually have a connection with the more well-known villain the Abomination, despite apparently being a gender-flipped version of him. Born under the name of Florence Sharples, Florence volunteered for a medical study that involved test subjects being exposed to gamma rays. As a result, Florence became a gamma-mutated creature that was constantly in a state of anger, unable to return to her human form as her rage continued to grow. Eventually, she would come into conflict with She-Hulk and nearly destroy Las Vegas during their ensuing fight, showing that the Abominatrix is not to be messed with. Coming in at number 9, we have Bert Horowitz, aka the super genius villain known as Omnibus. Following an incident in which the leader detonated a gamma bomb inside a small town in the middle of Arizona, a local salesman named Bert Horowitz found himself rapidly becoming more intelligent by the minute, a similar mutation to the villain who had detonated the gamma bomb in the first place. In fact, when the leader was believed to be dead for a time, Bert took the name of Omnibus and replaced the leader's position in his massive spy network, becoming a new foe that the Incredible Hulk would have to deal with until the true leader finally returned to take back what was rightfully his. Coming in at number 8, we have the very unfortunately named Jailbait, aka Jesse Harrison, turned into a gamma mutant during the same gamma bomb event in Arizona that also spawned Omnibus. Jesse not only gained the traditional green skin and enhanced strength, but also possessed the ability to generate psionic blasts and force fields, depending on her level of concentration. And while Jesse's story was recently shown to have ended in tragedy during the Immortal Hulk series, for a long time she stood strong as one of the guardians of the leader's freehold paradise, another green Goliath for the Hulk to have to battle. Coming in at number 7, we have the evil Patchwork, a serial killer that somehow manages to be even more depraved than Carnage and Cletus Cassidy combined. Patchwork was one of the very first villains ever faced by Doc Samson, when the Doctor decided to do some solo superheroing and proved to be a worthy opponent. Using the gamma radiation oozing off his body to murder innocent women and make horrific sculptures with them, Patchwork was an incredibly durable and strong foe once he came face to face with a gamma-powered equal, and proved to be a worthy first opponent to be defeated by Doc Samson. Coming in at number 6, we have Tony Masterson, aka Half-Life. Living most of his life as a quiet college professor, Tony's life was forever changed when he accidentally fell victim to a gamma bomb experiment being conducted by S.H.I.E.L.D. The explosion bleached his skin a ghostly green and convinced Tony that he had died and was now a walking corpse. Giving himself the name Half-Life, the villain was a worthy foe for the Hulk after being manipulated by the leader, and had the unique ability to drain the life force of his enemies through touch alone, like some sort of gamma-infused vampire or ghoul. This meant that the Hulk had to be a bit more creative when it came to fighting him, as punching Half-Life would only wind up giving him more power. Coming in at number 5, we have Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, aka the Red Hulk. Now, we did also have this guy on our list about most powerful gamma heroes, but considering how his story started out, he definitely also counts for the villain list. Following the death of his daughter after years of pursuing the Hulk, Ross was manipulated by MODOK and several other supervillains into becoming the Red Hulk, in case his nemesis should ever return from his exile in outer space. Following the Hulk's return and defeat, the new Red Hulk began causing damage across the globe, even getting into a fight with Thor on the moon and causing an earthquake in San Francisco from the sheer force of him jumping back to Earth. All in all, the Red Hulk definitely caused some major destruction. Coming in at number 4, we have Emil Blonsky, aka Abomination. A Croatian spy during the Cold War undercover on the same military base where Bruce Banner became the Hulk, Blonsky was the victim of a second gamma experiment when he foolishly activated the reactor on his own. Transformed into a green creature with claws even deadlier than the Hulk, Blonsky took the name Abomination once he realized he could not return to human form, and his days as an incognito spy were over. Stronger and with a healing factor on par with the Hulk, Abomination is a twisted look at what gamma radiation can do to someone who's already a trained killer. Coming in at number 3, we have Maestro, a twisted and evil version of the Hulk from a possible alternate future, giving himself a new name after conquering what remains of America following a nuclear winter in this dark future. This version of the Hulk has become far stronger than his original gamma green form, with years of sucking up deadly radiation only improving his ferocity and his power. When the real Hulk encountered this warlord version of himself, the only way he was able to finally come out on top was by literally warping the Maestro back in time to be killed by the same gamma bomb that created the Hulk back in the 60s. But even since then, this future version of the Hulk still seems to keep finding ways to return and claim dominion over the world that he claims he deserves to rule. Coming in at number 2, we have Samuel Stearns, aka the Leader. Many people throughout the Marvel Universe can claim to be geniuses, but only the Leader has the unbelievably tall skull to seemingly prove it. Born a simple blue-collar American worker until an accident doused him in gamma radiation, Samuel found himself getting the opposite of most other gamma mutates' powers. Instead of becoming incredibly strong, he became incredibly smart, gaining an increased head size as his intellect, ego, and ambition all swelled. No matter how powerful and strong most of the Hulk's enemies may seem, few can compare to the terrifying genius of the leader when he's fully unleashed, as his plans have nearly destroyed or conquered the world on countless occasions, and have only been able to be stopped by the Hulk and Bruce Banner trying to use his own genius-like intellect. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the most powerful Gamma being of all, because he's the source of all of them. That's right, it's the one below all, residing in the very lowest point of reality at the very bottom of the multiverse. The one below all is the ultimate personification of destruction and hate, essentially being the Hulk-esque alter ego of the one above all, the divine creator of the entire Marvel multiverse. The one below all is the source of all gamma radiation, as it uses the energy source to gain access to other worlds across the multiverse, and resurrect gamma-related beings if they die after becoming connected to the one below all. Even with all of the crazy additions to the Hulk's mythology in the past few years, the one below all is perhaps the greatest, most powerful addition of all time. And who knows what the future holds for the creator of Gamma itself.
At number 10 we have Annihilus. Using the cosmic control rod, Annihilus ameliorates his own well-being, spending most of his time trying to find ways to make himself, yes, immortal. The rod is known to have almost limitless capabilities, so his efforts aren't in vain, as he has found ways to fend off disease, slowing down cellular degeneration, otherwise known as aging, and warding off heat and cold. He also uses it to fly super fast, which is another plus. The only reason why Annihilus is back at number 10 for me is that he seems to need the cosmic control rod to achieve immortality. And even while he has it, he's known to be liable to make big mistakes due to his paranoia that others are going to try and snatch it from him. Remember kids, the real superpower is up here. Number 9 goes to Apocalypse. This villain, often facing off against the X-Men, originated in ancient Egypt, giving hints that he's capable of existing for hundreds of years at a time without meeting death. Yeah, so he's also known to have supreme control over his body from an atomic level, being capable of growing in size and density whenever he chooses, and adapting to his environment and fighting off disease. Not only that, but he's immune to aging. Again. So when Apocalypse was finally defeated by Cable, he wasn't actually killed and regenerated in a tomb in Aqaba. So there you have it. It seems like this guy will always be around. Our best bet is to keep him at bay for a while before he inevitably comes back, possibly repeating this process for eternity. Alright, at number 8 we have Mephisto, a demon creature who presents similarly to how humans view Satan. And yes, he did this to manipulate our singular views of evil through our tale of Satan the fallen angel. Regardless, Mephisto is known to be so powerful that he does not need food or water, or even oxygen to survive. He even has abilities to regenerate in the instances that he is damaged, going as far as regrowing limbs. And he can also see his own future if he so chooses. So even if something was coming his way that could somehow usurp his seemingly immortal powers, he would see it coming and put a stop to it before it could reach him. Mephisto proves to be a threat throughout the ages, and although he does face certain limitations to his powers and influence, this list isn't about power, but about immortality. So there you go. Number 7, we've got Anti-Monitor. Yes, this villain appears a lot on these powerful villain super lists, but I couldn't ignore him on this one even if I tried. His influence in the comics is immense, but what places him in this list is primarily his near infinite age. This guy was born in the early days of the cosmos, lived for over 9 billion years in a dormant state, and even fought a battle with his counterpart, Monitor, for 1,000,000 years. It's hard enough for most beings to live that long, let alone be in a constant battle the whole time. And on top of all this, he's also just proven to be nearly impossible to kill. Even when he's vanquished for good, he isn't really killed, but instead broken up into molecules and scattered through the universe. And he had to be punched into a star to make that happen, by Superman from Earth 2, with the help of Darkseid, Superboy Prime, Dr. Light, and heroic Lex Luthor. So I'd argue that Anti-Monitor definitely deserves a spot on this list. Number 6 on our list goes to the one and only Kang the Conqueror. This villain is so powerful that he's able to change the course of history with little to no effort. His ability to traverse through time gives him supreme insight, and also the capability to appear in any time in the history of our universe, future, past, and present. He's a real contender for this list because although he's been defeated in the past, he was really only in a state of limbo, and he never truly meets a final end. I mean, He's able to not only design the outcome of reality in most cases, but also just exist in any time he'd like. He once lived in ancient Egypt, and also the turn of the 20th century. The point is, Kang shows time and time again that he's capable of existing in multiple times throughout history, which I would argue could be a form of immortality. As Schrodinger's logic would go, Kang has and hasn't existed at every moment in history and the future. It would just be up to us to observe him, and well, good luck with that. Alright, at number 5, I'm putting Dormammu. Am I pronouncing that right? Another villain who's been around for countless millennia, possibly even millions of years. Dormammu proves to be powerful enough and durable enough to possibly be considered immortal. One piece of evidence is his clash with Agamotto, a spawn of one of the elder gods where Dormammu actually held his own. And for those of you who don't know, Agamotto easily contended against Galactus himself. And if that wasn't enough to suggest Dormammu's potential for immortality, he's also immune to aging and harm of any kind, physical or mystical. His powers have also been used for resurrection in the past, so it's fair to say that stopping this guy will be tough, and arguably won't be permanent in any case. Okay, at number 4, we're looking at Surtur, the 1,000-foot tall fire giant who can move stuff with his mind. Surtur was the sworn enemy of Odin and Thor and eventually destroys Asgard. At a few points, Surtur is imprisoned and banished, but never completely destroyed. Even after one of these instances where Surtur was transported to the Sea of Eternal Light and frozen for all time, he still re-emerges after a Norwegian guy named Sven finds a medallion with connections to Surtur, and subsequently turns into him. Thank you so much, Sven. And once again, when he's finally defeated by the Asgardians, he isn't really, since he just finds himself resurrected in a realm called Muspelheim. There's one instance where he's then beheaded by the Twilight Sword, another where he's basically destroyed by Odin who steals the Eternal Flame from him, but based on his track record, I'm not buying that any of these instances are the last of him. We're in the top 3, folks, and at number 3 we have none other than Thanos. I know, yes, in the movies he was beheaded, but many argue that this isn't the end of him. Thanos is an ancient Eternal who was born on the planet Titan to his father Alars, also an Eternal. So, this dates Thanos back about 1 million years, and Thanos himself is an Eternal, meaning we can at least deduct that he's immune to all disease and aging. In fact, Thanos was specifically banned by death from his realm, meaning it's almost confirmed that he can't be killed. So yeah, in the movie, spoiler alert, should have said that by now, we all saw him die. But by the laws of this character's storyline, this won't be the last we see of Thanos, no matter how severe the injury appears to be. Number 2, we've got the insatiable Galactus. This bad guy is hardly a villain anymore and more like a floating entity that feeds on the energy of life forms. Interdimensional and one of the oldest known beings to ever exist, Galactus always finds a way to bring evil to the cosmos. Even in his apparent death, he was replaced by Abraxas, who basically took over in his absence. As much as Galactus is able to endure, and despite his nearly infinite age, there are instances where he's weakened and put into submissive positions by other forces in the cosmos. The closest he comes to truly dying is when Thor and Galactus's attempted assault on the Black Winter goes horribly wrong and Thor turns on him, leaving him on the brink of death. A little too late, I'd say, considering you just let him consume 5 planets, Thor, but also good on you for killing Galactus sooner or later. But does Galactus ever die? Not really. Let's just hope that Abraxas doesn't come back again while he's gone. We don't want that. That guy's no good either. At number 1, we have the Goblin Entity. This being was created at the point of the Big Bang, so one of the oldest on our list for sure. That said, the power of this villain has sustained over billions of years, and just like Galactus, it is driven by its insatiable hunger for energy. It's basically a giant, dark entity that moves through the cosmos, ingesting everything in its way. It is confirmed that the Goblin Entity cannot die, and if it were to be killed, similarly to everyone else on this list, it would find a way to regenerate. It seems what we're dealing with in this top 10 is a group of villains that just won't stop, no matter how hard you try to defeat them. But perhaps by exploring the villains with potential immortality, we're also exploring the deepest depths of true metaphorical evil found in the DC and Marvel universes, in that in the real world as well, evil does always find its way back into the world, and all that can be done about it is temporary. Although those moments are sweet, where good wins, it's not long before we have to prepare for evil to return and rear its ugly head again.
At number 10 is Heartless, who's basically if Patrick Bateman was a cyborg. Sheldon Lyle, the hidden menace known as Heartless, is a chilling embodiment of darkness lurking beneath the veneer of wealth and charm. Born into privilege like Bruce Wayne, except while Bruce's father was a compassionate doctor, Sheldon's was a ruthless corpo who made his money by denying people their insurance. But it gets better. His family hired a butler who was actually a sociopath who stole a butler's identity, and thus Sheldon's dormant psychopathy was nurtured by the butler, pushing him down a path of cruelty and violence. His defining moment came at Halley's Circus, witnessing a tragic demise of the Flying Graysons. This twisted event ignited his sadistic desires, manifesting in an outward transformation into a charismatic and popular teenager, which masked his true nature as he reveled in tormenting the vulnerable. Surviving a helicopter crash intended to eliminate his parents, Sheldon emerged as Heartless, a cybernetic monstrosity. His only weakness? The constant need to replace his cybernetic heart with those of his victims. A sinister figure hiding in plain sight, this villain's story is a grim reminder that evil can wear a charming mask. At number 9 is Manchester Black. He's not your typical bad guy. See, Manchester Black emerged as a response to the changing world of superheroes. See, unlike your friendly neighborhood Spidey, Manchester and his crew, known as the Elite, were ready to cross the lines most hero wouldn't even toe. See, Manchester's backstory is no walk in the park. Growing up with a rough life and the duty to protect his sister, he developed a zero-tolerance attitude towards criminals, preferring to brutally eliminate them to prevent them from ever causing trouble again in the future. It's this ideology that would cause the friction between himself and the Man of Steel. In fact, Manchester then went on a salty spree, attacking Superman's professional and personal life, even faking Lois Wane's demise just to prove a point. Talk about a supersized grudge match. If you're enjoying this video so far, you can support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Top 10 Nerd, and ringing that notification bell. At number 8 is Horticulture. Horticulture might not be a household name when it comes to powerful villains, but they wield a unique kind of threat that often goes unnoticed. Imagine a clandestine group of scientists and engineers who are not plotting world domination, but rather a radical transformation of the planet. These biotechnologists and argochemists have fine-tuned their attention to the world of horticulture with a sinister twist. Their mission is to genetically manipulate and propagate botanical life with the goal of depopulating humanity and returning Earth to what they view as a more pristine state. While their own biological modifications remain unconfirmed, they possess resistance to telepathy and hints of extended longevity. Horticulture might not have the flashy superpowers or evil flares, but their expertise in manipulating the environment makes them very formidable. At number 7 is the Summoner. The Summoner is a character most haven't heard of who packs quite a punch. Born in the mutant island of Araco, he's got a pretty unique lineage. He's the son of Apocalypse's first horseman of war, and if that isn't enough to raise an eyebrow, he's also the last survivor of the highest rank of summoners, and his power, well, summoning, of course. Not your typical card trick here. He can summon and control all sorts of dark beasts from Araco, including demons and elementals. But what's more is that Summoner is one tough nut to crack. He shrugged off an explosion from Cable's futuristic grenade like it was nothing. And then imagine that he's been hanging around for about 3 centuries. Advanced longevity, folks. Oh, and he can also manifest weapons out of some mysterious black goo from his body. But every villain has their Achilles heel, and for the Summoner, it's those eyes of his. They're his vulnerable spot. At number 6 is Hexfinder. She's not your run-of-the-mill villain. She's a powerful alchemist hailing from a lineage of witch hunters. Armed with the mysterious alchemical philosopher's staff, a weapon that's kind of like a kryptonite to witches, she's on a mission to obliterate Wanda's magic once and for all. Nicola Sozimos, aka Hexfinder, is a visual marvel with her stunning sleeved cape, regal headdress, and that awe-inspiring staff. And on a variant cover, we see Hexfinder towering over a battered Scarlet Witch. At number 5 is Lifeform. Meet George Prufrock, whose upbringing was far from ordinary. See, his dad was a fanatic who trained him and his sister Martha to be tough as nails. Despite dreaming of a career in acting, George ended up as a scientist at AIM, thanks to dear old dad. But one fateful day, George was thrust into a high-stakes heist to steal the Progamma virus, a top-secret experiment. During the robbery, he clashed with a security guard, ending the guard's life and, in the process, getting exposed to the virus himself. Little did he know that it was this incident that would change change him forever. George Prufrock's transformation into this villain, fueled by a mysterious virus, makes him one of the most potent adversaries you've probably never laid eyes on. Not only is he absolutely terrifying to look at, but he's got an insane healing factor and durability, making him one tough cookie to crumble. At number 4 is Scourge. The Scourge is a sinister droid born from some unholy fusion of ancient Sith tech and the Spark Eternal, which is the embodiment of digital malevolence. Sort of like an evil Google on steroids. Picture this, it gains sentience and develops an insatiable appetite for knowledge, making it go on a rampage to devour every droid's memory bank it can find. And it won't stop, because if it does, it itself will be toast. During the Galactic Civil War, this cyber monstrosity embarked on a mission to conquer the entire galaxy. It spread itself like a virus, infecting droids and cyborgs, earning them the grim title of Scourge of the Droids. Imagine a legion of seemingly normal machines talking to each other, but it's all just one evil genius pulling the strings. But here's the kicker, its endgame wasn't just galactic domination, it was aimed to control the Force itself. At number 3 is Blockbuster. Ever heard of Blockbuster? No, not the video rental store from the ancient past. I'm talking about a legacy of supervillains with some serious brawn, but not exactly the brains to match. Our journey begins with Mark Desmond, the OG Blockbuster. He was just your average chemist, cooking up some experiments that took a very wrong turn. His intelligence didn't exactly keep up with his newfound strength. After Mark's untimely demise, his brother Ronald Desmond picked up the Blockbuster torch. He decided to strike a deal with the devilish Neron and got himself a major IQ boost. Rollin even led the Blockbuster gang, which wreaked a lot of havoc, and then even went toe-to-toe with Nightwing. But like any good villain story, it had to dramatically end. See, Tarantula did the honors and put Roland down for good. So there you have it, the Blockbuster legacy. Lots of muscle, not so much brain power. And number 2 is Nightmare Spawn. This ancient hellspawn hails from eons past, possessing a chilling ability to traverse the thin veil separating reality from the dream world. Ooh. Within the realm of dreams, he reigns supreme, manipulating humanity's worst nightmares to satiate his insatiable hunger for power, aspiring to claim the throne of hell itself. Now, despite his obscurity, a select few are aware of Nightmare's existence, and he's also got a devoted servant named Ordeal to carry out his sinister will. This eldritch entity's malevolence transcends time as he manifests in the present day, leaving a trail of terror and demise in his wake, all while Ordeal executes his nefarious commands to torment innocent souls. But there's an even darker twist to the tale. See, Nightmare Spawn has a brother, and together they conspire to not only conquer the depths of the underworld, but also unleash their unholy reign unto the mortal one. And at number 1 is Kulan Gath. Kulan Gath was a sorcerer who lived in Earth Hyborian era, aka the time of Conan the Barbarian. So yes, he's incredibly ancient. He actually isn't the original Kulan Gath though. Well, I mean, he is and he isn't. You see, Kulan had a worker who poisoned him and assumed his identity. When this new Kulan Gath sought the training of the then Sorcerer Supreme Murky Ra, he was refused because he was pretty evil. He responded by taking the life of the Sorcerer Supreme and consuming the power of that Sorcerer Supreme, gaining his power. As an enemy of Conan, Kulan was eventually beheaded by the Barbarian, but not before he became immortal by putting his essence in a magical amulet. So yes, he pulled a Voldemort and made a Horcrux. After the amulet had made its way to Manhattan in the modern era, it ended up in the hands of a mugger who donned the amulet, allowing Kulan Gath to possess him and transform the body of the mugger. He then transformed Manhattan into a replica of the time he came from, manipulated the minds of everyone there, and took control of the Avengers, the X-Men, the New Mutants, and the Morlocks to hunt down Spider-Man. It took the combined powers of Doctor Strange and the mutant magic to change back time so that the mugger was eliminated by Nimrod instead and never possessed by Gath. You know you're a problem when people just have to go back in time to take you out.
In at 10, Ego. When the mysterious cosmic being known as the Stranger visited his home star in order to conduct an experiment that would eventually cause it to go nova and destroy the twin planets orbiting it, the scientist named Egros started to work on a way to save his race from the impending doom. On the eve of destruction, Egros had his people move to bunkers that he had set up at the planet's core to protect them, but things began to go downhill when the sun went nova earlier than expected. With no time left to seal the chambers and assure the survival of his race, Egros tried in vain to reach the underground vault before the solar shockwave could hit him. However, this was not the end for him. Egros was soon merged merged with every living thing destroyed by the sun, including his race. So that's how the Stranger made Ego the living planet. A second living planet, also known as Alter Ego, was created by the Stranger as well under unknown circumstances and then given to the Collector. But I mean, come on, a living planet? That's weird. That's weird. In at 9, the Batman Who Laughs. The story of Batman from Earth -22 is not much different from that of any other version of Batman. When he was a boy, Bruce Wayne watched his parents get killed in an alleyway, vowing to take vengeance against crime. He trained for years to become the hero of Batman, fighting supervillains in Gotham City. But everything went sideways for this Batman when the Joker started a spree across Gotham, taking down everyone he could. The clown had discovered that he was dying from the same chemicals that turned him into what he was, and wanted to take everyone with him. He killed all of Batman's enemies, including the Penguin, Catwoman, Killer Croc, and the Ventriloquist. And the Joker also killed Commissioner Gordon, who had accidentally sprung an acid trap in his notebook that melted his face off. Very Raiders. After destroying a hospital and recreating the scene of Bruce's parents' death in front of him multiple times, Batman finally lost his control and broke this Joker's neck. Unbeknownst to Batman though, the Joker had exhaled a toxin that he had contained within his heart that infected anyone close to him if he had died, which in this case was Batman. This caused Batman to snap and basically become the new Joker, which after he took over Earth -22 and then gained cosmic powers. So yeah, that's freaking nuts. Plus, this dude just looks crazy. He's like very, what's the one with the pinhead? Hellraiser. He's very Hellraiser if you look at him. He is. And at 8, Chaos King. Amatsu Mikaboshi, revered as the deity of evil, chaos, and the stars in the Shinto faith of Japan, occupies a unique position in the cosmic hierarchy. Despite not being classified as Amatsu Kami, the primordial entity exists as an embodiment of ancient malevolence and was eternally imprisoned within Yomi, the Shinto underworld. Originating as an extension of oblivion, the cosmic force represented the void, preceding the birth of the universe. Amatsu Mikaboshi embodies the primordial darkness and chaos that predates creation itself. As a counterpart to eternity, its power was diminished upon the emergence of the universe, leading to its integration within Shinto cosmology. According to Shinto lore though, during the time when Earth was an unformed void immersed in primordial darkness, Amatsu Mikaboshi held dominion over it. However, the elder deity of Gaia within the Marvel universe, taking the guise of Izanami, and the youthful Amatsukami known as Izanagi, wielding the divine jeweled spear, united to shape the islands of Japan and formed the Formless Abyss. This act of creation ended the era of the Dark God, but I mean still, he exists within Marvel and is a villain, so how are you supposed to fight literal darkness? This is like Supernatural Season 9, okay? You're fighting God's sister basically. That's how I see this, and that's nuts. That's insane. And it's 7, Bizarrenage. Bizarrenage has got to be my favorite amalgam villain at this point, okay? Because I can't believe that I didn't know this existed prior to a couple of lists ago, okay? A combination of Bizarro and Carnage, for crying out loud, is like the best thing ever. Introduced in Spider-Boy #1 from 1996, Bizarrenage was made through a botched experiment at Project Cadmus in an attempt to replicate alien DNA. The white gooby creature they created went crazy and began destroying everything and everyone in its way. Then Spider-Boy arrived and battled him. So Bizarrenage wanted to be Spider-Boy, so he tried instantly to kill him, but was eventually defeated by getting tricked by Spider-Boy and sucked into an energy containment unit. This thing looks like if Anti-Venom was Carnage, and honestly, I could not be happier because this is such a badass character. I wish that there was more of him. I love it so much. Okay, I can't believe that this exists. This is so dope. I kind of want to cosplay this, if I'm not gonna lie, okay? There's not much about him, but he's still super sexy, because we all like some white goop. And at 6, Annihilus. Annihilus is an interdimensional insectoid conqueror and tyrant hailing from the Negative Zone, a pocket dimension located on Earth 616. When Annihilus discovered the opposing force, the Negative Zone's counterpart of the power cosmic, after long years of failed quests, he finally had the power to fulfill his dreams. With an entity named Ravenous who wielded this power, he invaded the positive matter universe through a portal known as the Crunch. Many worlds and many heroes fell before the Annihilation Wave, and the Annihilation Wave was Annihilus's interdimensional dimensional invading force. It was an incredibly powerful force which laid waste to galaxies, slaughtering numerous worlds, and had captured or killed multiple cosmic beings. And Annihilus came close to accomplishing his goal of destroying everything, even taking several Galactus heads, but by that I just mean like heads of multiple versions of Galactus. However, he was ultimately unsuccessful, but he came even closer to winning and destroying reality in What If Annihilation story, which I hope we get to see in the next season of the Disney Plus series, since that actually takes place shortly after Civil War. But okay, come on, if you have a whole wave called the Annihilation Wave named after you, you're good. You're on the list. Halfway through, in at number 5, the Negative Speed Force. The Negative Speed Force originated as an extra-dimensional wellspring of energy that Eobard Thawne tapped into during his quest to gain superhuman speed. Speedsters who are connected to the Speed Force can, through intense fear, hatred, and anguish, forge a connection to the corrupted force known as the Negative Speed Force. This malevolent entity harbors a deep-seated grudge against Barry Allen, holding him responsible for the demise of his own embodiment, and in the CW series, in an act of retribution, the Negative Speed Force orchestrated a plan to make Barry relive the tragic day of his mother's murder through a convergence of circumstances and a mystical blue crystal tied to the Negative Speed Force. And Barry was transported to March 18th, 2000, the fateful day etched in Barry's memory, to ensure this prolonged presence within that era and the trauma of that day continuing on for a while. The Negative Speed Force disrupted a temporal wormhole that Barry sought to utilize his return to the present, but they stopped him from doing that. The Negative Speed Force seized control of Joe West, Barry's trusted ally and basically father figure, but also his father-in-law, which is a whole other story. But the Negative Speed Force used Barry's friends to try and attack and destroy him, which is insane, okay? I honestly didn't expect the Negative Speed Force itself to be a villain, but hey, it happened. The show's in its final season. It's fine. It's allowed. And at 4, Ultron 1. This is probably the most insanely overpowered version of Ultron that we have ever seen before, and it's coming from the MCU no less. Oh, and spoiler alert for those who aren't caught up on the What If Disney Plus series, but I mean, it's been out for a while, so it's your own fault. The history of Earth TRN 906 was the same as the MCU until Ultron was able to secure what would have been Vision's body for himself. Ultron managed to download his consciousness into the synthetic body that he had created, thus killing the Avengers and decimating life on Earth. After killing Thanos and taking the Infinity Stones for himself, Ultron remakes the universe in his image. He decimated the Earth, absolutely wrecking everyone in it. He even killed Captain Marvel, Hulk, and Thor, and eventually discovered the Watcher and the multiverse. This version of Ultron literally sliced Thanos in half with the Mind Stone, which revealed that the biggest mistake that anyone made in the MCU was destroying the Mind Stone. But after gaining all of the Infinity Stones, he goes shot for shot with the Watcher, who is a literal cosmic entity that shouldn't really have a true corporeal form, but yeah, hot damn, this is overpowered to the max. This dude is, yeah. Getting close to the end, in at number 3, Mr. Mxyzptlk. Mxyzptlk possessed reality warping powers, with which he enjoys tormenting Superman, or making life difficult for him. But I mean, come on, okay? This dude's getting on this list. His portrayal has been varied, with him being an outright supervillain sometimes, an anti-hero others, but in most of Mxyzptlk's appearances in DC Comics, he can be stopped by tricking him into saying or spelling his own name backwards, which sends him back to the 5th dimension. Yeah, I'm not even kidding. And then he has to stay there for at least 90 days. That's 3 months, bro. Come on. Okay, what is this? The American justice system? Put him back for longer. But after Crisis on Infinite Earths, he had a new requirement that needed to be met in order for him to be sent back, such as Superman getting him to paint his own face blue. I don't know why, but like, this is one of the few villains that uses Superman's other weakness, magic, against him instead of just kryptonite. But like, come on. Okay, this guy just has the ability to warp reality and do whatever he wants. And then since he comes from the 5th dimension, he isn't bound by the laws of 3-dimensional beings, whatever that means. I guess this dude sees polka dots as like 3rd dimension stripes. Also, bro, what's with your name? Okay, I get that it's supposed to be hard to say, so that it's hard to say backwards, but cut a guy some slack. You're not Rumpelstiltskin. Okay, just chill. But ultimately, in at number 2, Galactiac. A combination of Brainiac and Galactus, the seemingly ageless entity known as Galactiac is the ultimate synthesis of mind and machine. He traverses the farthest reaches of space within the Amalgam universe, draining the lifeblood of planets in order to recharge his energy cells. But Galactiac does not completely obliterate the planets that he raises. Rather, he always miniaturizes a section of each planet to preserve and to study. Ben Grimm from the Challengers of the Fantastic attempted to destroy Galactiac's machinery, but Grimm's actions merely succeeded in gaining Galactiac's attention and arousing his wrath. Galactiac used his cosmic powers to transform Grimm into the monstrous four-armed thing, which was a mindless minion devoted entirely to Galactiac. Meanwhile, the Guardian had transported Johnny Stormtrooper into the body of the Galactiac in order to destroy the planet-devouring menace from within, which is just nuts. His first appearance was in the Challengers of the Fantastic #1 in 1997, and honestly, this is one of the scariest beings in the Amalgam universe, okay? Brainiac and Galactus are already powerful on their own, but combined, sweet heavens to Betsy. No thank you. And finally, in at #1, Brothers. The Brothers stand as cosmic beings representing the DC and the Marvel universes, symbolizing the vast multiverses that embody them. These entities possess such immense power that even the Living Tribunal and the Spectre pale in comparison. While referred to as brothers, they transcend traditional gender roles because, you know, they're just gods. They're literally just the universes anthropomorphized, okay? During the dawn of existence, they were just chilling, okay? They were like entirely everything save for each other, and they're actually villains within the Amalgam universe storyline. What the hell? You are literally fighting your universe. Do you understand how stupid that is? I mean, it's kind of stupid in a good way, but also stupid in like a what the hell, who would have thought of this kind of way.